Hi guys, Krishan Fernand again from Fluency PTE Academy. So today what we are going to do is we are going to look at as to how to get a perfect 90 in PTE Speaking. PTE Speaking has been a bit of an issue area for students because there are students who can get a very good score in writing, reading and also in listening, but sometimes struggling with PTE Speaking. In order to support them and support most of the students who are struggling with speaking without we will talk about PTE Speaking today. So I'll use read aloud question in order to discuss these techniques that I'm going to introduce today in relation to PTE Speaking. So let's look at what are the main issues that you would come across when it comes to PTE Speaking. So in order to get a perfect score in PTE Speaking, we need to know what are the main issues that you would come across. So if you look at the issues which makes PTE Speaking that much difficult for the students, so these are some of the common issues that the students face when it comes to PTE Speaking. One is they tend to fumble and then they could make a lot of hesitations and there could be pronunciation issues and stressing. One is due to the exam and one is not knowing as to how to do the speaking section properly. So in the speaking section, they would stress a lot and try to act in a not so natural way. Another issue that we have seen over the years is that students don't speak continuously. They tend to break their speech and then speak as separate parts, if I would call it. And then sometimes students are very slow and very difficult to hear. And sometimes students are very loud and very fast. Also, there can be self-corrections. Like we tend to correct ourselves every now and then when we make a mistake. So that would affect your fluency when it comes to PTE Speaking. And then students are afraid of the pitch issues that the students would have. So let's look at one by one what these issues are and as to how to correct them if you are someone who's having those issues.
What you need to focus on.
So let's look at fumbles and hesitations as the first point. Now, if we try to do this example given here, if you do it this way, the exponential growth of the internet was heralded in the 1990s as revolutionizing the production and dissemination of information. So if you do it that way, there are a lot of words and hesitations. Like you're hesitating a lot before saying a word. So that is not good. That is not going to give you a good fluency score because hesitation is a killer in terms of fluency. If you do that, what you need to do is take a natural pause and respect the punctuation rules, because sometimes you would make hesitations while you're trying to speak too fast as well. For example, the exponential growth of the internet was heralded in the 19th as revolutionizing the production, and so you don't have time to look at the word even, but you're trying to like go super fast and hence making hesitations. So what you can do is release your stress, just focus on the word in front of you, say it properly, take natural pauses. You need to have your breathing cycle going smoothly, hence take natural pauses and also ensure that you respect the punctuation rules and stop when is required. So if you do the example once again, the exponential growth of the internet was heralded in the 1990s as revolutionizing the production and dissemination of information. So here what I did was I took a bit of a pause for the comma. After was heralded, I took a bit of a pause, and in 1990s I took a bit of a pause, and there I could maintain a natural speed, and also it helped me to breathe properly, and then it didn't stress myself unnecessarily in order to go at a speed that I'm not comfortable with, and hence it didn't push me to making any hesitations or doing any fumble. Try to do that. Go at a natural speed and use natural pauses and respect the punctuation rules. So let's see how best we can do this. The exponential growth of the internet was heralded. So I'm taking a bit of a break. In the 1990s, again I'm taking a bit of a break because I need to respect the punctuation rule. As revolutionizing the production and dissemination of information, I took a break because I need to respect the grammar rule. Some people saw the internet as a means of democratizing access to knowledge. I am taking a break because it's a punctuation rule. There's a myth thinking that you should not be stopping. Hence, students are not stopping for the punctuation marks even. They're not stopping for the comma, they're not stopping for the full stop. They're just going at a faster speed without respecting any punctuation rules or anything, just trying to speak loud and speak fast. That's a myth actually. So you don't fall into that trap. If you try to do that, there are a high chance that you would make fumbles and hesitations. So go at a natural speed and take natural pauses and respect the punctuation rules. Let's look at the other point where the students are making mistakes. So pronunciations. Sometimes students pronounce words in a very awkward manner. For example, now in this, if I say revolutionizing instead of revolutionizing, that's a wrong pronunciation. So if you say revolutionizing, democratizing, if you pronounce that way, those words will affect speaking scope. So hence speak at a clear voice and speak loud enough for the computer to understand. And if you don't know the exact pronunciation of those words, you can skip those words and speak the other words clearly and properly. So when you're speaking, don't keep it to your mouth, speak loud enough. I'm not telling you to scream. Speed which is loud enough for the computer to hear you. Speak clearly. So one thing that you can do to speak clearly is focus on the word in front of you rather than trying to look at a lot of words and then trying to go at a faster rate. Now here, in terms of pronunciation, let's say the exponential growth of internet was heralded in the 1990s as revolutionizing. So I'm saying that word completely. Another thing that students do in terms of pronunciation is that they tend to not tell the last part of the word. They've already moved to the next word. So hence don't do that. Tell that word properly, finish it off, and then go to the other word. As revolutionizing the production and dissemination of information. Some people saw the internet as a means of democratizing access to knowledge. So talk like that so that you don't make any pronunciation mistakes there, and speak at a clear voice, speak loud enough so you don't make any pronunciation mistakes. So the other thing is stress. Because of the exam stress, sometimes this happens to people when we are talking in a presentation as well. Because of the stress, you tend to speak fast, and that can happen in the exam as well. So don't let that happen to you. If you try to speak too fast, what would happen is, like I said earlier also, you would make fumbles and you would make hesitations, make a lot of pronunciation errors as well, and you would not know what you are saying actually. So hence, calm yourself down and speak at a natural rate. Speaking at a natural rate is the best solution for most of the speaking issues. I know that there's a myth thinking that if you don't speak too fast or if you don't speak fast enough, your fluency will be affected. It's actually not the case. Okay, if you are speaking naturally, again, like I showed in the previous examples, you should be able to focus on the word in front of you and say it proper and then move on to the next word. And if you look at continuous speech and the speed, so some of the points are getting repeated. For example, stressing links to speeding as well. So likewise, and speeding links to pronunciation errors as well, and the speeding again links to fumbles and hesitations as well. So if you correct some of these errors, it will improve most of the areas that you should be doing correctly. If you look at this, it should be a continuous speech. Sometimes students talk like this: the exponential growth of the internet was heralded in the 1990s as. So if you look at that, is it a continuous speech? And do you think there's fluency in that? No, definitely not, because that person is looking for words. He's not sure about the next word in front of him. He's trying to understand what that word is and saying it. So it takes time. Speech is not a continuous speech. So hence it is not a very fluent speech. What you need to do is, it should be a continuous speech. When I said focus on the word in front of you, focus on it, say it properly, and then move on to the next word rather than looking for words. The exponential growth of the internet was heralded. That's, you are looking for words, so it's not very fluent. So how you should do it is, the exponential growth of the internet was heralded in the 1990s as revolutionizing the production and dissemination of information. Some people saw the internet as a means of democratizing access. So there you had the continuation, and it was a natural speed, and I was opening my mouth and giving a loud enough speech so that the computer can understand. So I was not making any hesitations, I was not making any fumbles. So that way I can get a perfect 90 for my PTE speaking if I do it that way.
Let's look at further for the other issues as well.
Now the self-corrections. Students tend to make self-corrections as well. Now for example, something like this: the exponential growth of the internet was heralding heralded in the 1990s as revolutionizing the production and dissemination. So you tend to correct yourself and then say the same thing over and over again. So this is not good in terms of fluency. So hence it is important that you get your fluency correct. In order to get the fluency correct, what you need to do is skip those difficult words. there's no point in trying to say that. One is, if you try to say that, and you might be making fumbles and hesitations, and you would be making pronunciation errors as well. The most important thing that you need to know is fluency over content. So it's not the content which is the most important thing in PTE speaking, it is the fluency. So if you don't know that word, just forget about it. Just don't tell that word, skip it and go, so that you don't make any mistakes, you don't make any fumbles, you don't make any pronunciation errors, and it doesn't affect your continuous speech as well. So what you can do is, if you make a mistake, don't try to self-correct, and if you don't know the word in the first place, skip it and go. Let's move on to the other section now, pitch issues. Now, this is the last thing that you should be worrying about, because I've seen that there are students worrying about pitch issue more than anything else. Before you worry about pitch issues, there are a lot of other things that you need to do correctly. Like we discussed earlier in this video, you need to speak at a natural rate, you need to speak clearly, you need to speak loud enough, and you need to pronounce properly, and you need to maintain a natural rate of speech. So you need to do all these before worrying about pitch issues. Because I know students who don't try to take the exam thinking about the pitch issue. Let's look at what the pitch issue is. What you can do is, you can download these two apps that I'm showing it here. One is Voice Tools and the other one is Voice Speech Analyzer. So download either of the apps and see where your pitch is, and you can see what the right male voice pitch range is, and then female voice pitch range is. See whether you are way out of the range or you are slightly out of the range. If you are slightly out of the range, and if you are doing all the other things properly, don't worry too much about your pitch. But if you're very much out of the range, then there's something for you to do. So if you're not very much away from your respective voice pitch range, just focus on the things that you can control. Because some people have deep voice. So if you have very deep voice, your pitch range can come down. And if you have a very soft voice, your pitch range can go up, and it might go beyond the expected limits as well. Generally what happens is, females have a very thin voice and men have very grave voice. I have seen there are men who have very thin voices, and there are females who have very grave voices. When you have this issue, they tend to think a lot about it, they tend to worry a lot about it, and then more than the pitch, they get all the other factors also incorrect. So what you need to ensure is that you don't fall into that trap. Ensure that you get all the other factors done properly, and then if you're someone whose pitch is slightly away from the right range, don't think about it. But if you're way away from the range, you can work with an expert to see what exactly you should be doing. So one of the major things with the pitch issue is, like, if your voice is very deep, you can record yourself and then try to play it back in some system. So what happens is, like, if your voice is breaking, if it is not clear, that is what exactly is the pitch issue. Because of that, you will not be heard properly. Like, the computer will not be able to hear you properly, and hence computer cannot evaluate you properly. So if that is the case, that, like I said, if it's way away from the range, you should be working on it. Otherwise, don't try to think too much on it. If it is drastically different from the right range, then only you should be taking some expert advice as to how you should be able to correct it properly. So I think these are the major issues that the students are facing, and we discussed all the possible actions that you should be taking. Now let's try to do this example with all these things that we learn, see how best we can do this. Let's correct ourselves with the points that we discussed. It should be clear, it should be loud enough, it should be continuous, you should pronounce it properly, and skip the difficult words. So let's put all of those into this question and try to see how best we can do this. The exponential growth of the internet was heralded in the 1990s, the production and dissemination of information. Some people saw the internet as a means of democratizing access to knowledge. For people concerned with African development, it seemed to offer the possibility of leapfrogging over the technology gap that separates from advanced countries. So I skipped few words. I deliberately skipped Africa because I thought I might not be able to say it properly. I skipped industrialized. I skipped revolutionizing. So those words I skipped just to show you that how you should be skipping the words you can speak, and it is not too fast or not too slow. Also, it was clear enough, it was loud enough, I was not making any hesitations or I was not making any fumbles. So that's how you should be doing the PT speaking. If you can do it that way, you should be able to get a perfect 90 in your PT speaking. Few other points that I want to leave with you is that there is actually a guide for the speed levels in PT speaking. So if you are not sure about what it is, just leave a comment in this video and we should be able to help you. The other thing is, if you are having any issues with the pitch, you can leave a comment so that we can help you as to finding pitch issues and then correcting yourself. And also, one thing that I want to stress upon is that don't rely on these third-party systems that you use in order to practice PTE when it comes to speaking section. They will not be able to give you 100% proper evaluation. So what you need to do is just practice these tips that we gave you, try to master those, and then don't worry too much on the score that you are getting from the system that you are using to practice. Just use them as a guide only. If you think you have an issue with your speech, talk to an expert like us. We should be able to analyze your speech, then guide you and evaluate you properly and give you the right feedback. So hence, don't think too much about the scores that you are getting in these apps. It should be taken as a guide only. So I think the points that we discussed today was very useful for you. So hence, if that is the case, please like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also stay tuned for more videos. We're thinking of doing a video for voice pitch issues that you are facing, a separate video, because like I said, it is not a main issue for you to focus on, but there are students who are very much away from the right range that they should be with. So hence, in order to address that issue, we are thinking of doing a separate video on voice pitch. So stay tuned for that as well. I'll see you with another video.